and welcome to The Expert Voice, brought to you by Georgetown University in Qatar. Recent news reports have stated that Russia is withdrawing its troops from Syria. To understand its political implications, we have invited Dr. Anatol Lieven, professor of government and author of several books, including Ukraine and Russia, A Fraternal Rivalry. Dr. Lieven, thank you for joining us. Dr. Lieven, can you tell us why Russia is withdrawing its troops from Syria?
Well, it's only partially withdrawing its troops. It's not taking all of them away. But I think what it demonstrates is that Russia never had any intention of helping the Assad regime to reconquer the whole of Syria. I mean, that would have been an operation lasting many, many years, one in which the Syrians might well have been defeated. And Russia would have had to go on making a massive military input throughout that period. Such a strategy would also have raised the danger of Russia becoming embroiled in conflict with other powers. So what Russia intended to do was to preserve the Syrian state, make sure that the Syrian state remained and played a key part in a future peace process. Not necessarily, as Russia has said, with Assad as president, but Assad must not be eliminated as a precondition. And of course, to make sure that Russia would have to be consulted on the future of Syria. Russia has now achieved both those limited aims and therefore can afford to withdraw some of its forces.
Thank you, Dr. Lieven. How great is the threat of outside powers going to war in Syria?
Despite all the silly talk in parts of the media about a third world war over Syria, there was never a chance of the United States and Russia going to war over Syria, because on the most important issue, which is fighting ISIS, they are, after all, on the same side. They differ over tactics, not over the main goal. And indeed, there are a good many people within the American security establishment and European security establishments who agree with Russia that it is actually necessary to preserve the existing Syrian state. Moreover, America has already demonstrated in the Caucasus in Ukraine that it is not going to fight Russia. The danger has been that Russia might come into conflict with regional great powers, in other words, either Turkey or Saudi Arabia, or both. In the case of Saudi Arabia, because of course Russia is an ally of Iran, which is seen in Saudi as the great enemy. And of course Turkey is deeply engaged in the Syrian conflict, largely because of its concern over Kurdish nationalism. But I think that both Russia and Turkey have demonstrated, after the one time when the Turks shot down a Russian plane, considerable caution. For Turkey to take on Russia directly would mean a Turkish invasion, a ground invasion of Syria. Now that's not out of the question, and that would indeed precipitate a very serious crisis and possibly a conflict. But all the evidence is that the Turkish government and military realize the dangers of that, realize the appalling mess they would be getting themselves into in Syria, the kind of mess the Americans got themselves into in Iraq, and therefore do not want to do that.
How does the Russian strategy towards Syria relate to what's been happening in Ukraine recently?
Syria, for Russia, is a secondary issue, and so Russia's commitment there has been limited. As the Russian government sees it, and much of the Russian people as well, Ukraine is a vital Russian interest because of its long historical ties to Russia and because of the number of Russians who live there, because one of Russia's greatest military bases is in Ukraine. And so Russia has been prepared to make a much bigger commitment and run much bigger international risks. Now that said, although Russia is determined to make sure that Ukraine doesn't join an anti-Russian Western alliance, Russia has not gone so far in Ukraine, nearly as far as it might. And Russia is now part of a peace process where the ball is actually in Ukraine's court, because a key part of the Minsk process is that Ukraine should introduce domestic constitutional reforms leading to a more or less federal system. Now, the Ukrainian state and political system is so fragmented that the Ukrainians have been incapable of making any progress on that. And so Russia at the moment is sitting pretty and waiting for Ukraine and the West to fulfill their side of the agreement. One thing, however, is certain. Russia has largely withdrawn from Syria. It may completely withdraw from Syria in future, except the naval base and some residual presence, Russia will never withdraw from Ukraine.
Dr. Lieven, thank you for being with us today.
It was a pleasure.
This has been The Expert Voice, brought to you by Georgetown University in Qatar.